I never expected to find a house like this for the price I paid. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a couple of acres out in the quiet countryside. It was peaceful, just what I was looking for, and it felt like a steal, almost too good to be true. Maybe that's the first sign I should have paid more attention to, but I was just excited to finally have a place of my own. The first few weeks were fine, but then little things started happening. At first, it was just the lights. I'd turn them off before bed, then wake up to find them on. I chalked it up to faulty wiring or my own forgetfulness. Then, cabinets started opening on their own. I'd close them every morning before work, but they'd be wide open by the time I came home. It was weird, but I figured the house was old. Maybe things were just a little loose. A month in, it got physical. The first time, I was brushing my teeth, and I felt a sharp tug on my hair. It was like someone had grabbed a handful and yanked it back. I whipped around, expecting to see someone there, but I was alone. I laughed it off, telling myself I was just tired or stressed from all the moving chaos. But that night, as I lay in bed, I felt a tap on my shoulder. 3 quick taps, like a knock. I froze, barely breathing, but no one was there. I tried ignoring it, hoping it was my imagination or something that would just pass. But things only got worse. Small items would go missing, only to turn up later in the strangest places. My keys ended up in the freezer once. I'd find the TV remote in my bathroom sink. And then there were the sounds, footsteps in the hallway, whispers I could barely make out, but they were there, just faint enough to feel like they were right in my ear but still far away. I was losing sleep, and my nerves were shot. The worst part was that I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I tried to tell friends and family, but they looked at me with polite smiles, like I was exaggerating or being paranoid. Maybe I was. So, I tried to handle it on my own. One night, I decided to do some research on the house. I'd never thought to look into its history before. I mean, it's not something you typically do when you're moving into your dream home. But as I searched, I found an article buried deep in local news archives. My house had been the site of a murder-suicide, decades ago. The husband had lost his job, spiraled into depression, and one night, he'd snapped. He killed his wife, then himself. They were found days later by a neighbor who'd heard screams. Apparently, no one had lived here since then. The real estate agent hadn't mentioned a thing. I guess I understood the low price now. That night, everything got worse. It was as if learning the truth had broken some barrier. I was barely asleep when I felt something cold wrap around my ankle and yank me out of bed. I hit the floor hard, my head smacking against the wood. Dazed and terrified, I scrambled to my feet, but as soon as I stood up, something struck me in the shoulder, hard. I was thrown back against the wall, gasping for breath. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. I could barely process what was happening, but I knew one thing. I wasn't alone. Days turned into weeks, and the incidents became relentless. Every night I'd feel a presence, something heavy and angry. I'd hear footsteps in the hall and objects would fly off shelves, aimed right at me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and couldn't think straight. My life was unraveling. I tried to stay calm, to remind myself it wasn't real. But it was. I could feel it. Every touch, every shove, every bruise that showed up the next morning. My body was covered in them, marks that seemed to appear out of nowhere. I started to lose track of time, to forget what day it was or when I'd last spoken to someone. My friends stopped calling and my job was slipping through my fingers. I was a shell of who I'd been just a few months earlier. Then, one night, I reached my breaking point. I was lying in bed, on edge, waiting for whatever might happen. Suddenly, I heard a voice, a whisper, inches from my ear. It said my name, clear as day. Then, laughter. Low, mocking laughter that grew louder, filling the room. I screamed, but the sound died in my throat. It felt like hands were wrapping around my neck, squeezing tighter and tighter until I could barely breathe. I was thrashing, clawing at nothing, trying to free myself. When it stopped, I lay there, gasping for air, my body covered in cold sweat. I realized then that I couldn't stay. Whatever was here didn't want me, and it wouldn't let me leave in one piece if I stayed. I packed up whatever I could fit in my car and left that night. I didn't even care about selling the place. I'd rather lose every cent than spend another second in that house. It's been 6 months since I left. I still have nightmares, still feel phantom touches, and hear that laughter in the quiet of the night. I don't think I'll ever really escape that place. Part of me will always be haunted, stuck in that house, replaying those nights over and over. And I have a feeling whatever's in there isn't done with me yet.